Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 163 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest is Dan Zia Joseph, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but let's start with our quote. And that is, "The biggest lesson I learned from Jiu Jitsu was how to truly know myself." And that's from Grandmaster Carlos Gracie. All right, Dan Zia Joseph is a jiu-jitsu practitioner, an Army veteran, and author of the book Backpack to Rucksack, Insight into Leadership and Resilience by Military Experts. He also has a master's degree in organizational development. In this episode, we discuss a number of things such as his friends' influence on him starting jiu-jitsu as well as joining the Army at 32 years old, training at Dean Lister and Jocko Academy, how jiu-jitsu philosophy carries over to the rest of life, battling anxiety, what jiu-jitsu taught him about himself and how it forced him to deal with past trauma, how training blindfolded developed his game, the staggering impact of veteran suicide, his friend Eric's impact on his jiu-jitsu during the pandemic, facing the boogeyman of fear, having your stress beat out of you by people you trust, why there's no bad positions in jiu-jitsu, being there for and listening to veterans, why he wrote the book, different types of leaders and how they affect their people, his mentor's impact on him, the importance of resilience, and the concept of the rucksack, among other things. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. I really enjoyed doing it. After the interview, make sure you stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now, without further ado, let's talk to Dan. All right, I am speaking with Dan Zia Joseph, who is a jiu-jitsu practitioner, an Army veteran, and author. He also has a master's degree in organizational development. So welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Right on. I'm excited to talk to you today. We've spoken just a little and definitely feel connected because of similarities in our background and interests. So I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, stoked to be here.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about your book in a bit, Backpack to Rucksack. But to get us started, I want to just talk a little bit about you joined the Army at 32, which a lot of people consider, older than most. So I feel like that's really interesting. But before we get there, let's just start by what led you to that decision. What was life like before deciding to go in the military, and how you got introduced to jiu-jitsu as well, because I know that was before the Army.
Yeah. So before I joined the military, I was in the biotech world after I graduated college, which college was a crazy time in my life. A lot of partying, a lot of self-medication that I'm open to share about. But I was in the biotech world. I was kind of started off as like a lab rat, and then moved into an environment, basically the field of what they call bioinformatics. So it's where people code they code machine learning algorithms to look at genetic code and predict human disease. And so it was definitely like a happening industry. There's a lot happening with personalized care and studying disease at a genetic level. But it was a pretty sedentary life, I would say. I mean, I was in the field meeting people and whatnot, but it was an office-based life. And about this stage in my life, when I actually started running my own company, I was making a lot more military friends, and simultaneously they kind of encouraged me to start jiu-jitsu. And as I met these folks, met a couple Navy SEALs that I became friends with, and they just completely changed my life, man. They taught me a lot about leadership, about just being an athlete, being driven, being physical, but having humility too. They're some of the most humble people in the world. And like no reason to brag, because they knew who they were.
Right.
And so that drew me into the world of just everything tactical, and then jiu-jitsu was just married to that, right? 'Cause special operators, whether special forces, special operations, they like to roll. And so I was encouraged to go start. So my buddy Tim from high school, he started a gym, and I went to his gym. I went back home to go visit my family, and he got me on the mats, man. And it was super awkward at first because just like had this friend from high school, and all of a sudden he's in my guard. So my like legs are wrapped around him, and we're just having this conversation with direct eye contact. And he's like, so you're going to hold me in your guard, and you're going to, I'm looking at him like, do I release my guard? Do you want me to stop? Is this awkward for you at all? It was just such a weird moment for me. But I remember his like comfort level and just how it's an intimate sport, man. And it's unlike anything else. And then we just built this tribe and this family. And Tim is a huge fan of Dean Lister and Jocko Willink. So when I live in San Diego, so he's like, dude, the gym that I want you to go to is Victory. Go to Jocko's gym. Go hang out with those guys. Jeff Glover was there. Just some amazing mentors on the mats, that taught us so much.
Yeah.
And I will say everything we learned on the mats, the black belts were very keen to tell us everything we teach you, the philosophy carries over to the real world, from breath control and anxiety control, crushing your own ego, being humble, looking for the angles, right? Looking for right angles, never attacking head to head, but just ever so slightly changing your angle, your approach to then modify the entire trajectory of your sequence of moves, right? All this stuff philosophically carries over to the world. Right. And so they taught us how jiu-jitsu was basically a spiritual journey. And that was a very healing part of my life because it brought a lot of darkness out of me that I had to face, man. The mats, don't lie.
And first of all, what a great place to start jiu-jitsu. I mean, yeah, can't ask for better, right? Right. In your book, I noticed it said, on a deeply personal note about jiu-jitsu, it reconnected me with my body, and I noticed my breath, muscle tension, and anxiety. So that's got to be great, kind of an awakening, but it also brought some challenges for you, right?
Yeah, man. So I started having a freeze response on the mats. I started freezing up, not being able to execute some moves, and it felt heavy. Like my chest was constricted. I couldn't breathe. It was all up in my, in my upper chest. I couldn't get a diaphragmatic breath, no belly breathing. Started getting really hypervigilant. I have some ruminating thoughts, and a lot of anxiety started chasing me off the mats. Basically, when I went home and I just stayed up, and this was for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm like, something's weird, bro. Something's going on. And then I hit up one of my best buds. He came over. He's a DEA agent, total badass, and was like, "Hey, man, like clearly you're struggling with something." Because I was going to jiu-jitsu 2 times a day. I was still doing 2-a-days.
Wow.
So the feelings were stronger and stronger. And then my buddy was like, "Go see my therapist, dude." And I was shocked. I was like, "Dude, guys can see therapists? What?" So So. Oh, man. So I went and saw him, and he basically said, you have telltale signs of physical abuse in your life, and in jiu-jitsu, it's coming back out because there's what they call psychosomatic markers, the soma being the body and psycho being the mind. And there's basically memories trapped in your body, and something in jiu-jitsu, whether it's the move or the way you're being touched or the way you're energizing your body with certain muscle groups, there's a tension that's stuck in you, and we'll dig it out. We'll figure out what it is together. And then all of a sudden, man, I just ended up crying after a process in his office where these memories came out from childhood, and I was just weeping, bro.
Yes.
And yeah, those demons came out, and I still, the therapist said, like, look, you can either keep going to jiu-jitsu and keep experiencing this stuff and getting exposed to it, a form of exposure therapy, and working through the grief of what happened to you, because it was some significant abuse, and then the other option was to quit jiu-jitsu and never go back, and then hide, or self-medicate in other ways. And I didn't want to do the alcohol and didn't want to do the drugs, so I kept going back to the mats and kept kind of being weird, but was open about it, and people came alongside me, man, and helped me break through it.
That's really cool. And it's very powerful hearing, because a couple things. I definitely used to try to self-medicate a lot because I grew up with abuse, and just ran from it and didn't want to face it or work through it. So just, numbed for many years. But years later, a lot of people don't realize how much you hold in your body, how much not only tension, but memories of trauma. I was a massage therapist and a body worker for many years, and I saw firsthand that when you released some of this constriction, tension, how it can just come out. And similar to what
people will cry, right?
mat.
People will start crying in front of you.
Absolutely.
I've heard of that. They'll totally
there,
break down. Yep. But and they won't know why. They'll start weeping and they'll apologize. I've seen it. My buddy is a physical therapist, said the same thing.
Yeah, they'll start either weeping and have no idea why, or they'll remember things that they didn't even know, and basically had blocked it out. But similar to you, like what you experienced on the mat, you just start having these things and all this anxiety and what's going on, and then you learn through your work with the therapist that you can work through this, and that's amazing. Good for you, man, for being open to do that.
Yeah, man. Oh, it's not just me. It's these guys that help me out. And I have one crazy story. Like, one of my buddies, he's a combat vet, and he saw me on the mat. So we would train together a lot in the Army. We had this underground fight club during COVID. So I don't know if I get in trouble for that, but we just, the tribe could not stop meeting. Like, we didn't care what the law said. We needed each other. We needed this therapy, especially, dude, salty war dogs, bro. They're not going to stop fighting.
Exactly.
I mean, when you need to be punched in the face for medicine, no one's keeping you from that.
Exactly.
And
right.
One of the guys, so it's really cool. One of them, he actually taught me to ease my anxiety. He started blindfolding me, and he basically said, because he was a brown belt, so he's like, look, dude, you're too stupid to know what I'm going to do to you. I'm a brown belt. You're a white belt. Like, your brain is too slow. So stop looking at my hands and stop looking at where I'm trying to attack you, because I'm going to easily confuse you. Because the decision tree inside of the brain of an upper beltman, I mean, you're a brown belt too, right? Yeah. So you guys have like this insane, all this ammunition you can hit us with. So what he did is he blindfolded me, and then I used proprioception. I had to feel where his body was going. I had to feel his angles of movement, and all of a sudden the proximity of my game just closed in. I was like, I liken myself to a koala bear climbing a tree, where I'm just like tight with the tree, right? So if I'm like on you, I'm going to grab your gi, or if not gi, if it's no gi, I'm going to grab your lat, I'm going to grab your wrist, and I'm going to bury my head into your chest and use my head as another pressure point to kind of move you around. And that's what happened when I started closing my eyes, and it calmed me down. I was no longer concerned with, where's the threat coming from? I would feel it, and I would know with certainty which way he's going.
Oh, that's great.
The other cool thing, so my breath was super controlled in those moments. And then also, as even black belts would compliment me on that, on what I could do is slow down their sequence by holding on to them tightly. As they were going to do a move on me, I could stop them. I could pause them mid-sequence. So some black belts were like, hey, man, I don't know if you know what you're doing, but don't stop that. That's perfect.
That's
because
awesome.
You as a white belt are making us hit pause. And usually white belts are very spastic. And so they use that spasticity, if you will, I don't know if that's a word, to then work out, a 30 chain sequence or whatever it is, So that was one thing. But then
before you go on, I just want to acknowledge how great and amazing that is, because you're right. Almost every white belt just kind of spazzes out and goes nuts, but you were able to do the exact opposite, tune out the stress, the overload of sensory information, and just feel proprioceptively and rely on that connection. And that was just like night and day. I love that.
Man.
It's great.
Well, it's so cool. So that allowed me to meet a buddy of mine. His name's Eric, and I love him to death. He's a black belt in judo. He has his black belt in judo and a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's an instructor at a gym here, and now he is, at least. But during the pandemic, he had some free time, and I also had some free time. So I asked him, I was like, "Hey, would you roll with me one-on-one?" I bought some mats because I was doing that little underground fight gig, and with some buddies. And so I invested almost $1,000 on these amazing Dolomir mats. And anyway, so he was like, "Yeah, we can do it." And he thought he was only going to do it once because I was a white belt and he's double black belt, and he was just like, "Well, maybe it's just a COVID thing. I'll give it a shot." But when we rolled, he said he was super impressed that at the pace that I had, the slow, methodical, calm pace, but yet a lot of power. I'm a pressure player, and he said he was willing to take me under his wing and mentor me. Wow. And do multiple. So we would start doing 90-minute marathon rolls, no breaks, 90 minutes nonstop with a double black belt. That was crazy. A whole. It was so euphoric, man. It was levels of endorphins I've never experienced in my life, on top of 3-dimensional chess. But here's the rad part. He told me, he's like, because months later, I was like, "Bro, did you ever think we'd have this kind of a friggin' friendship?" He's like, "Nah, dude, I did not, because you're a white belt and I had no idea." He said, "I told myself I'll give you one shot and that's it. Then I'll never, roll with you again like that." But he said what changed my mind was that calm pace that you brought. He said that was cool. He said I was shocked by that. And so that's a testament to these other men coming alongside me and coaching me on how to control my ego, how to slow my brain down, and really focus on breath. Let my breath be the compass. It's like the speedometer, right? How fast are you going? What's my breath per minute? Is it upper or lower breathing? And as soon as I go belly breath, dude, you could put me in a chokehold. You can put me in a triangle for the entire round. As long as I have one finger in on my neck and I'm protecting my carotid or jugular or whatever, and having just a couple millimeters of blood flow, I can sip air and survive for a long time because of these guys. So it's amazing to me how often, we tap ourselves out. You know what I'm saying?
It's so true.
Loss of control of our nervous system.
If you remember the first time you ever had someone put their arm around your neck, like a rear naked choke, and you're like, "Oh my God," and it's so anxiety producing. But later on, when you've been there, but once you've been there many times, you can start, okay, I don't have to panic, I'm good. Well, you can take that whole concept and do it anywhere on the mat with any kind of pressure if you learn to breathe and you learn to have the mindset I'm okay. All I need is a tiny pocket, right? And It's something I'm very passionate about. I came up with the thing called Breathing for BJJ, a program. I just was in Athens, Georgia this past weekend and teaching a course of it, but it's just like you described. If you can create a little pocket, if you can be aware of your breathing and where you need to breathe, it just changes your game so much. And it becomes really fun, because if you love jiu-jitsu, but then it starts being such an anxiety producing thing, and a lot of times it can be for a lot of people, then it starts slowly but surely not being as fun. So I love it because it restored the joy for me of jiu-jitsu when I learned about breathing. So love that stuff.
Yeah, man. On the note with anxiety, when I started dealing with mine a lot, when stuff started coming out, there are times, and the road to recovery is long, dude. It's taken years, man. There's been times I show up to the gym and I just would walk in, have a massive amount of anxiety, and just walk out, go back to my car and just sit there. Be like, I don't think I can go in today. I don't think I can handle it. Then there's one day, bro, I thought it must be nuts. I did that about 6 or 7 times. And then after the 7th time, I pulled up a Jordan Peterson video about fear. And he said, courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about doing the thing in spite of the fear.
Yes.
It's something to that extent. And because he doesn't tell people to be fearless. He says, have courage in the midst of that fear. And then I was like, all right, where's my gi? I'm going in. And of course, it was a brilliant roll, right? No threat. It was awesome. But how much my mind would the anticipatory anxiety of, if I go into this event, I'm scared of what's going to happen. But the memories are deep, man. If anybody suffered abuse as a child, if anyone suffered any sort of sexual assault in their life, which I've experienced as well, unfortunately, don't ever feel ashamed or alone in that. I mean, of course, it feels isolating and it sucks, but it's like my buddy, same guy, the DEA agent. It's like a brother of mine. He said, think of it as the boogeyman. Because he told me the story. He's like, when I was a kid, I swore the boogeyman was under my bed. And I was scared of getting out of bed. Until one day I said, I'm going to punch the boogeyman. So he said he jumped out of bed and he took a swing. And he's like, guess what I hit? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Was there someone under your bed? He's like, no, I hit nothing. I hit air. And ever since that day, he realized the fear is just, it's a specter. Wow. You know, it's not really there. And so that I have to remind myself of that. It's my own projection. You know, I'm projecting this, you know, and in jiu-jitsu, whatever you're projecting, bro, you're going to manifest that. Because if you're anxious about something, someone's going to feel that. If you're angry and pissed off, I knew when my buddy, before he divorced his wife, I knew every time him and his wife had a fight, because he'd come to the mats and try to murder me. Yeah. And eventually we had to tell him, like, hey, bro, are you dealing with something? He's like, yeah, you know, dealing with some stuff with the wife. Okay, well, everybody on the mats feels it. 'Cause look at all the broken bodies, because this dude's a tank, right? So we had to tell him, like, dude, if you're pissed off about something, you can talk to us, but don't take it out on us, right? And I was told the same thing when I got out of the Army, because I almost like fought this guy, and I didn't realize how much rage I had. And I apologized, and I wasn't super. Anyway, I was shocked at my own behavior. I did not like put hands on him and like. Anyway, it was getting there though, and so I told my coach, who's also a vet, I'm like, hey coach, something's happening, and I feel like I was about to be disrespectful to someone, and you get it, the hierarchy, right? I don't want to piss off the upper belt men because they're my brothers, sure. And I look up to them, right? They could demolish me, but also I just out of respect. So I went out of my way to coach, and I was like, hey coach, he pulled me aside and he said, listen, dude, you just got out of the Army, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're gonna have this stuff come up because you're in a new world now, man. You're in the world has changed since you've been in. You've changed, and you probably don't even know how much the Army changed you. And so he said, next time you feel that rage, pull me aside. I don't care if I'm in the middle of a lesson. I will stop the class. I'll hand it over to another black belt or brown belt, and you and I will go over to Jocko's mat, and I'll beat you up. I'll just beat you up until you settle down. And he said that out of love. He said, like, he basically is going to walk alongside me and do that, right? Amazing. And he did that one time. He did that. There were a couple times I needed it because he you know what he'd do? He'd come up, hey man, how are you doing? And I wouldn't make eye contact. Good, I'm good, coach. So guess what? He knew, like, all right, this dude's got a freaking demon in him. So he'd pull me aside, and this other guy who's a retired Navy SEAL, they would just absolutely wreck me, dude. I mean, to the point where I didn't know if I was like pissed, sad, scared, just all the hormones, all the neurotransmitters. You
just got it all out.
And dude, I mean, afterwards, there were times where I like teared up, man. Friggin' started crying a bit. Not gonna lie, man.
And the beauty of that is, if you had gone through the fire, or somebody beat your ass or whatever on the street, and you didn't know them, that's a whole different thing. You know that these guys were taking care of you, had your best interest. So even though they put you through it, you knew ultimately you were safe, and that they were doing it for a reason, right? For your benefit.
Was so cool, absolutely. And what was so cool is they looked at me, man, with like so much love and respect after they saw me, just like, because it was submission after submission, and the coach would just hold the submission but not submit me. So I'm trying to tap. He's like, "No, I'm not letting you tap." And then he switched up to a new submission, new choke, new armbar, new whatever it was. I'm just like, holy smokes, let me end this round. But he made me go the full extent of it. And, afterwards they just looked at me like, we're here for you, man. Anytime you need that, we got your back. And that was trust, so healing to me. That was so cool. Like, there's no other bond like that, man.
No, it's so cool that you can build that kind of trust with people and then go through stuff because they've got your back. Love it. I want to move on to your Army, but before that, you said going through kind of physically, but then the mindset, what we tell ourselves, we build things up so much, like when you said you were trying to go in, then you left and you came back. And I used to do that too. But once I got around to like really focusing, like, what do I want to do in jiu-jitsu? Why am I doing it? And I keep coming back now is I want to have fun, and if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it. So I'm there to have fun and to help others have fun as well. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you're never going hard, or if you're training for a competition or something, that's different. But in general, my jiu-jitsu journey is about having fun. So I keep that on the mat, that kind of attitude, and it's a game changer.
Yeah, one of the black belts at the gym, amazing guy. He trains a very special subset of military guys, and I won't say more than that, but I will tell you he has this phrase that he tells us, and it's along the lines of there is no bad position. You're never in a bad position in jiu-jitsu. Even if you get submitted, good, you're becoming better at what you do.
Right.
But he always tells us no position in jiu-jitsu is a bad position. It's just a position you need to rework.
Mm-hmm.
And that shifted everything.
Yes.
Because even if a guy is kind of being a jerk and grinding my face into the mats, I'm like, hey, this technically, it's not good or bad. It's just a position. That's all this is. It's a position. And it takes all the fear out of it, all the anxiety out of it. And it makes it, like you said, fun. It's a puzzle. If I can look at it as a puzzle and remove my ego out of it, my overblown, insecure ego that I've for so long in my life have struggled with, and I'm still managing, that takes all the bad feelings out of it. Because anyway, and in psychology they call that a reframe.
That's
reframe.
Right. I studied a lot of NLP, and I love the concept of reframing. But that whole notion of the situation isn't the problem; it's your interpretation of the problem, right?
Absolutely.
Of the situation. So reframe it. That's it. Perfect. All right, let's talk about. You came to the point where you decided to go in the Army. So
man.
How did that go? And let's talk about it.
So the guys, I told you I met a few SEALs in San Diego. They're on the teams, and they were deploying to Iraq, and they were crushing it, just absolutely demolishing the enemy. And my family is actually from there. They are Christian refugees who escaped piece by piece. Like families were broken up, so mother and kids would go one way, the dad would go another country. They would all have to escape through various routes to not get killed. And we had some relatives get gunned down trying to escape. And so, so my buddies were going back to the villages that, my family's from. And I felt this indebtedness to them, this gratitude that they were willing to lay down their lives for people that they owed nothing to. And so, while I was comfortable at the beach, in California, they were going back to what my life could have been. I could have been in a place where people are every single day threatening to cut my throat. And so, I just started feeling more and more compelled to join and in some way give back and be part of the same family that they're part of. I don't care what branch it is. If you serve, one team, one fight. I get it. All the branches, we have our, we take our jabs at each other, but that's for us to do internally. That's not like, for civilians to see, they should see a unified front. You know what I mean? And I believe they do. And between us, I'm so honored to see other people, such young service members, want to join at 18 and have the balls that I didn't have at their age, because I was stuck in my own head and my own trauma. But I joined at 32 and finally signed a contract. Ended up not deploying though. I was in a non-deployable unit, so I worked with a lot of combat vets. But I was in a unit that trained people to deploy. So that was the biggest shock, because I was hoping to go overseas, but I didn't. And I will say that so all the stuff I talked about with my trauma and anxiety and all that stuff I grew through on the mats, that connected me with a lot of war veterans, because they said by describing what I went through in jiu-jitsu, I finally gave them language to describe what they went through in combat, which was mind-blowing. I had no idea it was the same feelings they had, right? But they saw a perfect alignment in what I experienced and what they experienced in their bodies, physiologically. So they asked me to help kind of coach them on what they're going through, and just to be an ear to listen to the stuff that they wanted to share with me. And that was the coolest part about joining the military, is working with who I believe are heroes. And they would never say that, and they would cringe at me saying that, but they absolutely are. And they began telling me things that they've never told anyone else, that they've never told a therapist, that they've never told their spouses. Wow. Stuff that keeps them up at night, every single night. Stuff that they still struggle with. People that they've seen die, and the wounds that they've seen, and the trauma, and the horrible situations of war that were so complex. So many gray areas, man. But so that's where, again, jiu-jitsu opened a door that I never thought would be open, which was having this eye-to-eye conversation with these badasses about stuff they experienced. And I just loved them, man. I still do. And anything I could do to help them feel not alone, it helps me heal myself. And it also helps me feel less selfish because I can be alongside a brother and talk to them like that. And it's even better when they do jiu-jitsu because then we can heal on the mat.
Absolutely. I think that's so important because in your book, and we'll get more in your book in a little while, but I do want to say, I know I said self-regulation prevents self-medication. This is arguably more important than knowing how to fire a rifle. Post 9/11, more veterans died by suicide than in combat by about 4-1. And we owe it to them to deepen our awareness. So that's just like you were saying, you know, just amazing how many people are so damaged by what they went through. And then when they don't get help or don't have someone to talk to on that level, I mean, more people dying of suicide by 4-1 ratio than in combat. I mean, that's just amazing. So it's so important for, you know, people like you and others to be doing that kind of work and being there for people, you know?
Yeah. Hey, man, thank you. I mean, the compliment, it's weird receiving a compliment for anything I do because it's these guys that they were the ones that were willing to get shot in the face. These are the guys that were willing to lay down their lives, and they're the ones that did the darn thing. So my heart goes out to them. And I mean, any appreciation I get for this book or being here and talking, I just give to them, man. And I still I'm still in touch with First Platoon, the platoon that I led. And I just tell them, like, guys, this is for you, you know, because their stories, you know, they don't want to tell their stories a lot of times because it's hard for them to retell it. They tell me it. And then they said, if you want to share my story, right, I give you permission. But they said, I'm not interested in talking about it because it was heavy enough going through it.
Sure.
And it's hard enough for me to formulate it into words for you. But if you think it'll help others, we'll give you permission. You just don't say our names or our units. But there's a lot of stories like that. And I'm honored that they would do that. Cool. And I just want to hug these guys and love on them because they shouldn't be carrying that weight alone, man. That's a lot of weight to carry.
Agree. But, you know, you show a lot of admiration to them and well deserving of it. They are. But just to turn the spotlight a little bit back on you, we all have there's a lot of ways to serve, right? And I know some people at times who were in the military, including myself, who didn't go to combat, sometimes can feel almost like a little less than, like we didn't do what others did. And I just think that's a shame because there's so many other ways that you can serve. And what you're describing is a very important way that you're helping, you know, you admire them for what they did, but then you're helping them get through, you know, amazingly difficult things by what you're doing. So hats off, you know, to you.
Thanks, man.
Back up a minute. So you went in at 32. I went in the Army, I just turned 19 and young and dumb and no maturity whatsoever, but was glad I did it young as far as physically because we had one or two people that were a bit older, and 32 certainly in the grand scheme of things is not old at all. But when most everybody else is, you know, 18 or 19 or 20 or 21 or whatever, it is a little older. So what was that like? Were any special challenges with that? Did people see you look up to you, or did they see you as old, or what was that like?
No, it was easy, bro. As long as you're in shape and you can run, you can ruck, nobody cares. They really care. If anything, they're more inspired that you're older and in shape. And I was, you know, in the top percentages of fitness and whatnot. So that helped. And that gives you like instant credibility in the military. But one of my best friends, Brent, he was 18 when I met him, and we're still friends to this day. He's out of the military now too. But he's an old soul, one of the best guys I've ever met from Ohio. Just a good dude, friggin' giant guy. He's got these massive grips. So when I started rolling with him in the barracks or in the base in basic training, I couldn't believe his grip, bro. Like this guy, like farm boy strength. And I think he's like, so he was 18. He was like, right now he weighs, I think he's 6'2", and weighs 260 or something. And just still has an 8-pack. Like it's insane. Jeez. The dude's like a beast.
I hate him.
So, yeah, man. It was so fun rolling with him though. And
that's cool.
So we're friends to this day. And I have a buddy right now. He's 19 years old and he's in buds. He's going to be a SEAL. He's crushing it right now. The dude's a tank. He was like a state wrestler and, just a really awesome guy. But I don't look at them as young dudes. I look at them as men because they're signing contracts where they're willing to die for their job, right?
Yeah,
and I always tell, because I was an officer, and I always tell like lower enlisted guys, that, the E-dogs, as they say, are the most important dudes in the room, because they're the ones willing to get shot first. They're the ones willing to get blown up first. And they're the important ones, because I mean, if you're willing to lay down your life, and we're, officers, we give the brief, like, you're going to move from here to here. And yeah, like, we lead the convoy and stuff, and that's how we're trained as officers. But at a certain point, there's a disconnect with regards to the workload and who's actually putting hands on and who's the actual boots on the ground in the heat of the moment a lot of times. And so most of the time anyway, so I see these young folks as just super solid. And yeah, I just love being one of them, as much as I can.
So, I love hearing how you're talking about that, the importance of the enlisted personnel, and having been enlisted in the Army, I know firsthand how important it is to have leadership and have the commissioned, your officer personnel to be people you can look up to and rely on and trust. And sometimes that's there and sometimes it's not, depending on the situation. But I know how important that is. So, I love hearing that attitude. Let's move into your book, which we'll continue talking about the military, because it is military themed, obviously, but it's all about leadership. So this will be a great time to get into that. The book is called Backpack to Rucksack: Insight into Leadership and Resilience by Military Experts. So just tell us how that came about for you, and we'll get into some of the concepts and principles and stuff.
Yeah. So, well, when I was in the Army, I had a soldier who survived his suicide attempt in my platoon, and his name's Cody. He wrote the introduction to the book, and the foreword was written by my buddy Austin. And he lost, at the time I wrote this book, 13 men from his unit to suicide after Afghanistan. And the 13th one committed suicide after I published the book, which is just astounding numbers. I mean, I told Austin, I'm like, bro, how do you even make sense of this? This doesn't compute. Double digits. He said, yeah, I served with every one of them. I knew them. And so I wrote this book after I got out of the military to decompress from my own kind of, I guess, my own stress from not knowing whether or not I was a good leader, or how good I was, or how bad I was. I was just trying to make sense of what went down from my purview based on things I experienced in the military. And so I worked on a master's in psychology when COVID was a thing. And so I applied the kind of like research protocol to research a paper to the book. So I'd look up the objective science, the neurophysiological applications of what good leadership looks like, what mental health looks like, kindness, what's the neurophysiology of kindness, of humility, of all these things, equanimity. And so I pieced that together. And what really helped this book take off was, I told you that there were some awesome badasses that I was friends with, some Navy SEALs, a MARSOC officer, a Green Beret, EODs, rescue swimmers, pilots, whether fighter jets or helos, from all different branches. And so they kind of raised me up. They were enlisted guys and officers, right? So they taught me before I joined the military how to lead, how to talk to people, how to communicate. And so when I got out of the Army, I told you how I was kind of stressed out, and I noticed that in Jiu Jitsu, I was a little bit more aggressive than usual. So I took some time to read and did like a journal entry on what are some of the nuggets of advice that I got from these SEALs, from the Green Beret, from the MARSOC officer. I started writing out very profound pieces of wisdom, and I reflected on that, and it brought peace to my mind. And then that journal entry turned into a 400-page book that basically every chapter is dedicated to one of these solid dudes who mentored me. And tying it all together is mental health in leaders and in subordinates. So that way soldiers like Cody, won't veer to suicidality, because they'll be in an environment that's so healthy that they won't need to, and they'll be more robust on the front end. So on the back end, that doesn't happen. And guys like Austin won't lose 13 men from their unit to suicide, because leaders are profoundly aware of the neurocircuits in the brain and the neurophysiological manifestations of stress and anxiety and burnout. And when people are overloaded, when to ease up on that gas pedal, let the unit rest, let guys decompress, treat them in a way where they want to come to work. They're inspired to come to work. So I go through all these examples, the difference between a transformational leader and a transactional leader. I go through topics of humility, topics of calm, ego defensiveness in insecure leadership, fear-based leadership, shame-based leadership, compensatory mechanisms that are maladaptive, meaning, bad ways of acting strong and being tough. And, I've seen guys give the tough talk, telling soldiers, don't complain about depression, don't complain about suicide. You haven't seen anything. You guys don't know what I've been through. And then you find out that NCO or that officer has, a psychiatric break. They get carted off to a hospital, get checked in because they're struggling. And that's so sad to me because, he's bullying them because he's hurting. Mm-hmm. And the young soldiers, they're smart, man. They're not stupid. And you can't talk down to them, because if you talk down to them like consistently, I mean, I get it. When we're in training environments, you stress people out, and you bark, whatever it is. I get it. But, when you're doing that day in and day out, every single interaction is them being made to feel stupid. I mean, that just compounds the stress. And I don't want to see that in the military, man. I want to see a healthier military. And I'm not saying a soft one where everybody plays the victim. That's not, I don't know, a lot of people stigmatize it as such, but I mean, look at jiu-jitsu, dude. I mean, how many black belts initially look weak when they start rolling all soft and gentle? Mm-hmm. You're not going to tell a black belt like, hey, bro, I think you're weak. I think you suck. I think you're not going to egg a black belt on, because when he needs to throttle that violence, he's going to hit that accelerator in a split second. You'll be waking back up on the mats. Like, what happened? Well, you just finished the move. That's what being a black belt is. You ease into that. You don't always flex. A black belt never has to look at the room and say, do you look at my belt? Look at my rank. Right. You better respect my rank. Bro, you see that black belt and you know what he's been through to get that belt. And you just, there's this massive primal respect. It's like a wolf pack. And I want the military to be like that. And I think every officer should get choked out. I think every, senior enlisted guy should go get submitted on the mats before they get their rank, because it'll help humble the ego. And yeah, it makes you stronger. It doesn't make you a victim. It makes you stronger because you're a protector. You use that strength to protect others and build them up. That's right. As somebody who's been bullied and abused, bro, that's at a younger age, that's so important to me to live that out and see these strong men live that out.
Well, I think we have to really identify for a lot of people what real strength is. And it's not this stoic kind of hardcore, exterior all the time. When you think about the old analogy of a tree, a really, very, very rigid, hard tree, when it has a strong wind, it can't sway or flex and it breaks. Whereas one that can bend and, has flexibility and adaptability, it can survive. It's the same thing. True strength isn't being this hardcore macho, mentality and talking down to people and saying, don't show your weakness or your feelings. It's like you said, the black belt. You've got that strong capacity or those, high level skills, but you don't go around wearing it, like or whatever, externally saying, look at it. Yeah. It's the same. And unfortunately for many years, at least the military, I got to see that a lot of leaders did come at it like that. The military vibe itself was kind of like, you don't question, this is how it is, do it. And I'm not saying question everything as far as, but at the same time, I do think that it's shifted some, and hopefully with work like yours, it will continue to increase awareness and as leaders themselves get a lot more emotional intelligence and learn what true strength is and learn the value of knowing their people, and building that trust. And then you can be vulnerable without being weak, and then also show true strength, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, let's just have discussions about this. That's what I want, because we have so many brilliant NCOs. We have so many brilliant enlisted guys with so much knowledge about warfare, because they carry this physical scars, not only the emotional scars, but the physical scars of being in the war. And then you have these new officers coming in. I mean, I want to see them all sit down at a table together and have this talk, right, about what war looks like, about the mindset, about what's expected of leaders in a combat scenario, what's expected in garrison when there's no war going on. I want to see a dialogue between both sides of the house. I don't want it to be this situation where, somebody comes in with a certain amount of rank or years under their belt and say, and I've seen this, where they say, how many years have you guys been in? Like, what, less than 3 years, less than 5 years? I've been in 15 years. So shut up when I'm around. I don't want to hear your opinion. I don't want to hear your ideas.
Wow.
I will tell you. And, and you see the Joes, bro. You see the look in their eyes. They look around like, yeah, F you, man. That's the way you're going to talk to us. That's the way you're going to treat us. Roger that. You have no credibility now. And I've seen people convinced that that's the way to do things. And that wasn't my style. My style was to be approachable, to be sort of a parent figure, talk to me. Where's your stress out? And I'd go to the NCOs and just ask them. And this isn't because of my own accord. This is because I was taught well by guys who took the time to mentor me on the mats and just in life in general, who are vets or active duty. And they, I'd ask, this is the commander's intent. This is what we have to do. What's the least dumb way to get this done? And if you want to see a squad leader light up, all right, sir, check it out. Do it this, and this way. Shift this around, move it this way. Then we'll hit the commander's intent, and it's less of a headache for us. I'm like, all right, cool, too easy, man. Go do it. Execute. Let me know if you need anything. And I would remove myself as much as
that's amazing.
Possible to streamline it. And I wouldn't be like that normally, man. And that's because of these guys. They shaped me that way. And because of the mats, the mats taught me, put your ego aside and you'll learn better. Kill the ego and you open your mind. And so I brought that to the Army. And I didn't get everything right. There were times I should have spoken up more. There's a lot that I wish I did for the guys more. And because again, I look at them like my kids, like my brothers, and I just I love them, man. And because I've seen what they're willing to do. If I tell them, hey, this has got to get done, bro, they'll put themselves in danger in a heartbeat. They don't care. They're young and invincible, but in my eyes, they're a precious resource, and I'm responsible to their families. If I get one of them killed, if I get one of them hurt in a training environment, I got to answer to their parents. What did you tell my kid to do? What did you tell my son or my daughter to do? Why did you leave them hanging? And I'm not saying, obviously, training, it's crazy, bro. People die in training, right? A lot, it happens. And so it's important that I don't want people to feel ashamed of themselves or feel guilt for if they've lost someone. That's heavy, and I would never want to put that weight on them. But how as a leader could we not question ourselves? Even if and this is where leadership gets so complex. There's so many moving parts because you do have to accomplish the mission, and there are inherent risks. There are calculated risks left and right. But if it's just there's enough background noise, there's enough static in a combat training situation, whether it's in war or whether it's in a non-war environment and you're training for war, right? Like you said, you pressurize it. But how much more so static if we have our ego involved?
Yes.
If we have our own insecurities, our own fear, hangups, right? It's like, dude, let me shut off my issues real quick, turn down the dial and turn up the knob on my soldiers' voices, on those around me, because they can snap me out of it. Hey, sir, you're making a stupid decision. This is the best way to do it. Oh, yeah. Okay. Roger that. My bad, dude. I was so caught up in this one element of the mission set, I totally forgot the logic of this side of it. All right, cool. Thanks, guys, for checking me on that. Right. And that saved me from getting them hurt, from wasting time, wasting resources. And again, I could have done better. There's situations where it's a learning process, right?
Yeah.
I did not do things perfectly.
Well,
but
you're human, so you're not going to be perfect. But the difference is you built trust, and then you told them, here's the objective, what's the best way to do it, or the least stupid way to do it, and then got out of their way, right? The smartest leaders, in my opinion, get exceptional people around them. And forget the ego and let them do their thing, which is going to make you look good anyway. But if you don't have that trust, if you be a jerk, when it comes to something like a potential mistake they may see you doing, they're not going to speak up. They're going to let you crash and burn because they don't care about you.
Yeah, so, man.
Yeah.
And that's why I hate being thanked for my service, because especially like as an officer, I'm like, dude, it's the enlisted guys that are doing it, bro. They're getting punched in the face. They're the ones that are putting the sweat equity into the job. They're, and I'm like, give them the credit, bro. Like it's for the Joes, that's honestly, like, of course I wanted to help them and do more, but I got yelled at because like, hey, you can't do that. Officers aren't allowed to help. You can't get your hands dirty. You can't. Right. I'm like, dude, get out of here, bro. Let me try this, So now if they got stressed out and they're like, hey, sir, stop trying to help us. You're slowing us down. I'd stop. But if there's moments where it could help, I would. But there again, there are some people that say, "Hey, no, as an officer, you don't ever do that. I don't want to see you do that because you're making it look like your unit doesn't know what they're doing. You make it look like, you're giving the image off that they need that much help, that they're getting their officer involved. Whereas other people said, no, you just look like somebody who's motivated to be next to your guys.
Right.
So, and that's where leadership gets so crazy. So was I wrong for being close to my guys? Yeah. In some people's eyes, yes, I was absolutely wrong. In other people's, no, I was absolutely right. So that's why I wrote this book, because there's so many opinions. What's the science? What's the objective nature of psychology and neurophysiology? And how can we have this intricate discussion with people with so many varying opinions in the military? And I will say this, the biggest dance I did on eggshells, right, to be careful in the military, it was like friggin' walking through a minefield, was engaging with some NCOs who'd been to war. Some were not the healthiest leaders. Mm-hmm. And even still, I did not ever want to like pull rank on them and stress them out more, because I don't know how much they're struggling with. I don't know what demons they're fighting every night. I can see it. I can definitely see them, like, we'd be on like a demo range and we'd detonate some C4 or a Bangalore or whatever shape charge. And then you just see the guy glaze over and just be stuck. And I talked to one of them one time. He's like, dude, that just reminded me of losing somebody in our convoy. And I was like, dude, okay, I'm just going to back away now, let you have a minute to collect yourself, and then we'll carry on a discussion later, But I saw some guys get real feisty real fast. I had one NCO ball his fists up on me as if he wanted to knock me out. And because I was arguing on behalf of the Joes, because he was kind of being a bully. And I could have, hemmed him up for that. Like, oh, what is that? What are you doing? I'm an officer, like blah, blah, blah. But I didn't. I trust me, I know what a fight stance is. And I would love to grapple. I'm not afraid of getting punched in the face. Like, that is my love language, right? So, but what I realized is this is important for me as a leader, to back off this guy, give him a chance to recollect himself. Because that's when I started my belly breathing, right? When I saw him ball up his fist and square up on me, I took some deep breaths, right? First of all, I switched my hips up, put 1 foot forward, 1 foot back slightly. But then I thought, yeah, this isn't going to happen. I'm not going to get in a fight with this dude. But, I let him calm down. I try to be as respectful as possible, not patronizing. But I realized this guy's got weight on him, man. He's not just trying to fight me. He's trying to fight all those demons in his own life. And as a leader, it's so important to be sensitive to veterans who've been to war, guys who've been, to war, because it's hard to tell a dude who's been blown up or shot at, hey, I need you to be a little more emotionally healthy right now at work. Right. It's just, it's not fair to him, because he may not have that toolkit yet. But again, this is the complexity of leadership. Are you wrong for writing a guy up for being disrespectful at work? No, you're definitely not wrong. But are you wrong for being a leader that says, I'm going to let you take a breath and we're going to come back to this? It's like in Jiu Jitsu. If a black belt has two options, right? If you're disrespectful and you buck against the black belt, he could right there just drop his forearm into your throat and smash your trachea and leave you talking funny for a week, Or, what he could do is he can speak and say, we're going to stop this roll. I'm going to give you a minute, or go easy, calm down. There's some, most of the time, unless somebody's insanely disrespectful, black belts will give them a moment, right? They're not going to drop the hammer unless that dude starts hurting other people.
Right.
If he starts hurting other people on the mats, they're going to greenlight him, right? They're going to jump on that dude and make sure he either leaves the gym broken, like physically broken, or so psychologically broken, he's going to cancel his membership. Or the third option is the guy checks himself and realizes he needs to be nicer to people, right? And I know I'm ranting right now, but again, this is where leadership on the mats translates to in the military. Yeah, man.
And I like how you mentioned the if you can breathe through and kind of check yourself when you feel like there's potential you're getting triggered, even though I don't like the term triggered, but same, you know what I mean. You can stay calm and breathe through it. That goes so far in so many situations, especially if something's getting heated and you could easily have your buttons pushed and start kind of bowing up and like, let's escalate. But no, stepping back, detaching, and breathing and just like settling down and say, okay, what's really going on? What's behind this? What does this situation really need now? I really like that. Let me read a couple of quick things from your book that were said by a couple of different people, and then let's just have you elaborate a little bit on that. And then I want to speak quickly, get your opinion on resilience. But first one is from Rich, who is a Navy MH-60 commander, it says, when you walk in through your front door, take your cape off. Don't pull rank at home. Forcefully demanding respect from family leads to instability and resentment in the home. I had to learn that before it ruined my marriage. And the other one is Ryan, a Navy flight surgeon, said it's never too late to pursue goals and dreams, so don't get discouraged by comparing yourself to others. You'll be able to do anything you set your mind to. Go for it. So just elaborate on those two a little bit.
Yeah, so Rich talked about, he was talking to a bunch of guys who were, actually there's a few team guys, SEALs in our group. It was a men's like church group that I was at.
Nice.
And there's a couple pilots as well. One of my best buddies was in the group, Matt. He's in the book as well. He's a Fly Sierras. And so Rich was talking about how, because some of these guys were getting married before they shipped out to go fight in the Middle East. And they were young, right? And so they're asking for advice. How do we keep our marriages intact? And how do we not get divorced? And because, there's a lot of that in the military. And Rich said, make sure when you come home, you turn the dial down on the work stuff. Don't bring your rank at home. Don't bring your, because at work you can yell at people, you can scream at people, you can tell someone you're going to respect me because of my rank, but you do that to your wife, you do that to your kids, they will absolutely, oh dude, again, credibility's gone. And so that almost crushed his marriage. And then he had to check himself and realize that he's never going to say that to his wife. He's never going to say, you're going to respect me because who I am. And so, that was his piece of advice. And Ryan is a buddy of mine who's a doctor. Crushes his life. He's a beast. I love him. He's one of my best friends. And he told me, don't ever let your age hold you back. Join the military. Wow. Go for it. Yeah.
You know what? I would love for someone to describe me at some point in my life that he's crushing it. He's a beast. That's pretty good, man. So Ryan's definitely got it going on.
Love him, dude.
Both of them do. Yeah. So this book has a ton. I've read the first 3 chapters. I haven't read it all, but I really like what I've read so far. And Thank you. Definitely think people should check it out. Let's talk a little bit about resilience before we close, and how you feel like it's a good way to build resilience and kind of what that means to you.
So resilience, I mean, you described it beautifully, because that tree concept, right? Rigid structures break and flexible structures can absorb impact. And I talk about it like, the shocks on a Humvee when we're slamming through terrain and wadis and all that in the desert, as we're training for, operations that are involving, desert terrain and mountains and cliffs. I mean, crazy stuff. Well, the shocks, I mean, they don't work that well because the entire vehicle rumbles, but they're supposed to absorb that impact, right? And the rougher the terrain you're going to hit, the more you need to invest in maintenance in that vehicle, right? Whether that vehicle is your brain, the neurocircuits in your brain, or an actual, tactical vehicle. It's the same concept. You can take on a certain amount of impact based on how much work you do on the front end, how much maintenance you do. It's about burnout. Resilience is about balancing burnout with the workload. And it's a process of self-care. It's a process of enriching yourself psychologically, having a psychological toolkit of resources, social support. I mean, resilience is there's multiple variables. It's not just one thing, and it's modular. So strengthening yourself inside who you are, your ego, in a healthy way, balancing your ego, understanding your breath, understanding what your body can handle, when you need rest, all this stuff, right? Based on the op tempo you're up against, it's going to keep you in the fight longer. And the healthier you are individually, the healthier the organization is going to be. So that's kind of my thesis on what resilience looks like.
Yeah, I agree. I think some people just don't really realize the benefit and how important this is, because it's kind of like putting in regular deposits in a bank account, right? And then it's there when you need it. So doing it on a consistent basis, however that looks to you, it could be meditation, could be any kind of self-care, or
Jiu-Jitsu, baby.
Jiu-Jitsu, anything that strengthens you, mind, body, and spirit, is making those deposits, and then you're going to have that much more readily available when it happens. Another thing is self-care is huge important, but also some people don't realize exposing yourself to harder things helps you get through, harder things, right? I do intentional cold exposure and ice baths pretty much daily, and it's when I first started, it was like I'm the last person in the world that would be doing this. I'm from Florida. I hate the cold, and then I learned to do it, and it was good, and I breathed through it, and I was like, what can traffic or anything do if I can breathe through this kind of stressor?
Right.
But then it progressed to where now I look forward to it. I love it. I also great expose ourselves to hardships and get better at dealing with them, right?
Yeah, man, definitely.
Any last words on that or anything else before we close? And also, how can people learn more about you? Where can they find your book and learn, just more about you?
Yeah, well, you can check me out on combatpsych.com. I got a few chapters up for people to view for free. All these awesome podcasts are going to be uploaded to the website, so the links will be attached, so they can go check that out. And there's my thesis on Jiu Jitsu and breath control and anxiety control from my master's online too. So yeah, combatpsych.com. You can reach me through the website. And the last thing I'll say is, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a human being with struggles. There's definitely struggles you have because you're human like everyone else, and you're worth it. You're worth progression. You're worth enrichment. And you're worth the growth that'll get you to a place where you can then coach and mentor others. Because if I can get through all the insecurities and all the fear that I've had, if I can get through all the stuff that I've been through in life, and I'm not through it, I'm in it. I'm still going through it every day. But I'm going to, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I'm with guys that are mentoring me. Don't feel alone. Don't feel discouraged. Just in the midst of the suck, continue moving forward. And that's why, I love the concept of the rucksack. We all carry weight in our rucks, man, in life. The point is, don't stop. Don't ever stop moving. Even if it's a shuffle, you don't have to be sprinting in life. If you got to shuffle one foot to the next to get through, do it. But don't ever stop progressing. Great things lie ahead, and it's not going to look awesome all the time. But, it's a complex journey, and I don't know, you're not alone.
I love your message. It's so important, so vital, and it's going to help so many people. Leadership is so important. Resiliency is so important. Taking the lessons we have on and off the mat and in life. And like you said, you're not alone. Keep moving forward and reach out if you need help. Reach out to someone. We all need people. So
Totally.
Thank you for all the lives you're impacting, my friend. I'm glad our paths crossed, and thank you for taking time to let us know a little bit more about you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really, really enjoyed this.
Right on. Everybody go check out his book. You won't be disappointed, and I wish you a long, healthy, happy life, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right, bud.
All right. Really enjoyed that conversation with Dan. What an interesting guy he is, and I know he's going to impact a lot of lives. All right. This episode is brought to you by Breathing for BJJ. And Breathing for BJJ is a 31-day online video program that I spent 2 years in developing, and it's designed to transform your jiu-jitsu experience. There's nothing more important than your breathing. It makes a profound difference in your jiu-jitsu experience. Optimizing your breathing takes your jiu-jitsu experience to a whole new level and has a huge impact on your performance. Learning to regulate your breathing can completely transform your jiu-jitsu experience. Being able to slow your breathing down when you need to, create energy when needed, breathe when in uncomfortable positions and situations, and to find the calm within the chaos are skills you need to master to create and achieve the optimal jiu-jitsu experience. This program uses a biomechanical approach to actually target and strengthen your specific breathing muscles, creating efficiency and effectiveness in your functional capacity to breathe. It's time to make breathing the foundation of your BJJ. And you can find out more at www.breathingforbjj.com. Next up is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
Jack Welch once said, "Change before you have to." How true that is. Championship leaders understand that in order to remain relevant and competitive, they must foster a culture that embraces change. When you think about the brands that have been around for 100+ years, how they looked in the beginning is much different than how they look now. They changed. The brands they once competed with no longer exist. Why? They didn't change. Grace Hopper once said, "The most dangerous phrase in language is, 'We've always done it this way.' As the leader, you must relentlessly fight this mindset. Don't allow your team to focus on how things used to be, because used-to-bes don't make honey. Instead, focus on how things are gonna be. Gonna-bes make honey. Gonna-bes have a clear vision of the future and how they need to grow in order to become that better version of themselves. They understand constant growth requires constant change. Remember what John Maxwell once said, 'Change is inevitable. Growth is optional.' Close your eyes and visualize what things will look like in 3 years. How will you need to evolve in order to meet that vision and be a front runner in your space when the time comes? What changes do you need to make? Start making those changes now. As the leader, you have the remote. If you don't like the channel you're on, nobody can change it but you. So stand up and change it. And don't be afraid of the naysayers. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, 'Do what you feel is right, for you will be criticized anyways. Trust your instincts. Pursue your vision. Even if no one else sees it, just start the journey. The others will follow. And stay ready. New levels will bring new devils. But the higher you climb, the stronger you'll get. Take pride in being a professional problem solver as you rise. Remind your team that every change you make is an effort to get better. You don't change for the sake of changing. Like Jim Rohn said, life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. At the core behind every big change is a why, and that why is to get better.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.